What's up, everybody? My name is Zach. Welcome to week 2 of our video series on doubt. It's called Doubt It, if you didn't know. In our video last week, I explained everything that we have going on throughout the week digitally. So if you need to, you can go back and just watch the beginning of that video and figure out everything that we have going on. Or you can just put a question in the comments below and we'd be happy to answer it and get you all the information that you need. Other than that, you can follow us on our social media where we post almost every day about what we have going on. So check those things out. Fun Zach fact for you. I've always been a real trusting person. When I first got my driver's license, I never locked my car. I've always believed people the first time they've told me something or something like that. I've never needed to do a lot of research or a lot of digging to believe people. When I was in my CDL school, I had a guy come up to me and ask me to use my phone, and I loved the phone that I had. It was the first iPhone I had purchased by myself with my own money. Before then, I just kind of had hand-me-down phones or phones that were like cheap just to be able to get something in my pocket so I can contact people. So this was my first phone that I really had for entertainment purposes as well as the necessities that come with a phone. And so I said, sure. So I unlocked my phone and I handed it to the guy, and the guy took it and he said, thanks. And he dials the number and starts talking to, I guess it was his girlfriend on the phone. He starts talking to her. And as he's talking, he is walking farther away from me. And I'm just standing there. I'm outside. I'm kind of keeping an eye on him. But he starts walking farther and farther away. And I start thinking to myself, I'm like, man, he's walking pretty far away. And he gets all the way out to the parking lot where his car is, still on the phone. And then this guy opens the door and gets in his car with my phone and is still having a conversation. And I remember thinking to myself, this dude's going to steal my phone. Like, I worked hard. I paid a lot of money for this phone. And he's going to steal it. And there's going to be nothing that I can do about it because he's already in his car. So all he has to do is turn the key, put it in drive, and drive away. And my phone is gone. And this is everything that's going on inside of my brain. But the good news is he eventually came out of his car, gave me my phone back, and thanked me for it. But you best believe that now, anytime somebody uses my phone, you have zero privacy on my phone. Like, I get the privacy on my phone, not anybody else. So I stand right next to that person. If a kid's calling their parent to organize a ride, I'm standing right next to the child while they talk to their parent to make sure that I get it back and it's in my pocket. But I think a lot of times our faith in God is kind of like that. Like, we have doubts about something and we need proof. And typically, fact-checking, investigating, finding evidence is all a celebrated thing. But I think sometimes when it comes to our faith, we can kind of feel shamed for that. We can kind of feel like, man, maybe we're not trusting God or we don't love God quite as much. But I don't think that that is the case. I think it's okay to have evidence to support what we believe. I mean, if someone ever asked you why you believe what you believe, what would you say if you have not done research? Simply answering the question, this is why I believe what I believe. But if you've never done research on anything, how would you be able to answer that question? And I think we can look to a chunk of scripture. It's John chapter 20, verses 24 through 28. And what's happening here is Thomas, Jesus has died and he's come back to life, and some of the disciples have seen him, but there's one disciple by the name of Thomas who has not seen Jesus yet. And so what Thomas says is basically, I need to see it to believe it. And so the disciples are all excited about this news. And this is where we chime in on verse 24. You can follow along on the screen. It says this: Now Thomas, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. When Jesus initially rose from the dead, Thomas was not there. So the other disciples told him, we have seen the Lord. But he said to them, unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were, I put my hand into his side, I will not believe. A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, peace be with you. Then he came to Thomas, put your finger here, see my hands, reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe. Thomas said to him, my Lord and my God. Some of the disciples had already seen Jesus. Some of the disciples already believed, like they already had that proof in front of them, but Thomas had not yet seen it. He had heard it, but he had not yet seen it. He did not yet have the proof in front of him for him to be able to make up his mind that Jesus was here. And so I think we got some good takeaways or some good things that we can look at. Number one, did Jesus get angry at Thomas for not having more faith? No. Did Jesus punish Thomas for not believing the news immediately? No. Did Jesus do what Thomas asked? Yes. He showed his scars and let Thomas touch them. He gave Thomas that proof. And I think the reality is that God knew that we needed evidence. I don't think God shames us for our questions. I think he helps us find evidence. I think the main time, I mentioned this last week, the main time that our doubts become dangerous is when we push them down. Like we don't want them to be answered, right? There are things in the Bible that I've had to do research on. I've never just let my questions and my doubts sit. I've sought people out. I've researched it in the Bible. I've done other research and things like that to figure out the answers to my questions. I've taken them to God like we talked about last week. I think some of us are just naturally more skeptical than others. Not everybody is going to be as trusting as me and just give your phone to somebody you don't know. In fact, I know this for a fact because I've taken some high schoolers' phones and been like, hey, what's your passcode? And they won't give it to me, which is totally fine. I think the reality is that some of us are more skeptical than others. And I think that's okay. I think if you took a personality test and you know that every single one of us functions a little bit differently. In fact, if you took that personality test, you probably realize that there are some things on there that don't make sense and there are some things on there that do make sense. But if you figure out how you are wired, you can figure out if you are more logic oriented, right? Like you need more facts and evidences and things like that. Or you could be like me and you're a little more trusting and you kind of read something and be like, okay, this makes sense. For me, I feel like I understand kind of the character of God. So when I read things in the Bible, if something doesn't make sense, I know that I'm just not thinking about it correctly. And I need to go search out that doubt and that question that I have. And so what I want you guys to think about a little bit for our discussion a little bit later is this: what kind of evidence does God provide? So what kind of evidence is out there that God provides to whether prove his existence or to talk about the doubts or the questions that you guys have? That's what we're going to be talking about today. So I hope you guys tune in. Middle school at 4 p.m., high school at 7 p.m. We'd love to have you guys there. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.